Well, first Holmes was born, then he got fat, bald, and tired. Sup, Holmes?
Beware your host, Jonathan Holmes.
Thank you so much, Sinistar. I want to buy you a slushie because you need to cool out. You are intense. But I love you that way. I'm just kidding around, just pointing out your traits for a joke. And I'm here with Kyle Reimergartin. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes.
Thanks.
I'm going to say yes no matter what you said, though.
And you are Kyle Reimergartin.
Yes, names are fluid constructs. I'm Kyle Reimergartin.
Garland?
Garland.
Like a garland of flowers?
Kyle Reimergartin.
Oh, because Christmas.
Because Christmas.
Yeah, and thank you so much for being willing to be on the show just a few days from Christmas.
Absolutely.
Yeah, here you are. You have made so many games already, though from what I can tell, the one that's making the biggest splash is Fjords. Is that right?
Definitely Max and Kyle House of Style, my biggest game yet. So, yes. I'm really excited to continue to promote that and have people pay money to play it, so please do, everyone.
Do people pay money to play Max and Kyle's House of Style?
I'm looking forward to that eventuality.
Oh, what on what platform would you sell that game?
Oh, probably Oculus Rift. I think that it'd be really well suited for that. It's like, I mean, because when you put on your Oculus Rift, you want nothing more than to be confronted with the angry demonic visage of Donovan singing one of his beloved songs from the last half century or so, and inviting you to enter into that fullness of being that comes from dodging, like, you know, I can't remember the name of Michael Jackson's ape. Can you remember that? What was its name?
Bubbles, I think.
Bubbles, yes. Yeah. Bubbles. So, and we tried, when Max and I were making that game, we tried to include as many inverted crosses as we possibly could. So, like, I really think that it has something for everybody, and it's just got a really wonderful commercial spirit that gets to the heart of, like, really what we're contemplating this holiday season. So, all of you out there, like, really, I made this for you 5 years ago, 4 years ago. Time is irrelevant.
Yeah, pretty much. It's,
hi.
Hi, Kyle. It's great to meet you. Thanks for telling me.
It's wonderful to meet you as well.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It's going to be fun to try to keep up with you, I can tell. Though I don't have to. You can talk the entire time if you'd like. I won't mind at all. I will just listen and smile.
I might attempt that in one iteration of this show.
I enjoy that potential attempt. Fjords is a game. It's the first game of yours that I played. I heard about it, I think, from a lot of people were talking about it. Anthropy was talking about it. David Gallant was talking about it. Gallant. No, it is Gallant, actually. My mistake. A lot of people have been talking about it, though. You've been making games for longer than that, from what I've gathered. When did you start? Yeah, when did you start making them?
I think the first game that I made that I actually finished, and it wasn't just like a cat head bouncing through some clouds, which is still a game that I'm really excited about making and like realizing in the future, was Magic Planet Snack, and that was like 7 years ago. I actually don't know. Magic Planet Snack came out a long time ago, and that was the first one that I put on the internet, and people played it and said some things about it to me, and that was fun. So, like, ever since then, I've been really trying to hone my particular brand, personal brand, if you will, of confronting the eventuality of universal collapse within a constellation of food. So that's just kind of what I'm all about right now.
Magic Planet Snack?
Magic Planet Snack.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
so it's like a...
Yeah.
No. Oh, no. It's imagine that, like, you as an individual, as a human, possibly, definitely as a sentient being, have thought about yourself becoming a gigantic planet-devouring snakeworm, and then you suddenly are that, and like, what would you do, and how would your day proceed? And that's what I wanted to explore with Magic Planet Snack. It turns out that you would eat the heart out of a series of planets until everything was devoured.
In sort of a puzzle game format, would you call it?
No, I would call it an eat everything that you can genre slash roguelike but not like just and then there's some snacks. I'm really good with genres. It's been really easy to communicate what Fjords is all about, because I've just said that it's all about pizza, and most people, I think, have that experience throughout the entire time. They're thinking all the time as they like fall off of cliffs into bottomless, trackless abysses. Wow, I'm really thinking about pizza right now and how much I enjoy its consumption.
It is kind of like pizza. It's a combination of ingredients that you wouldn't necessarily think, whoa, I can tell who made this. Don't they still debate who created the pizza? Was it the Greeks or the Italians or the Greek Americans, the Italian Americans, right?
Yeah, I think that I'm more on the Greek side of this things, because when I think about pizza and most foods, like I imagine them in their purest, most platonic state, like this kind of hovering arch food that's just sitting out, like kind of pandering to you, thinking, why don't you want to eat me? And you most of the time are saying, well, because I'm in the middle of something. But sometimes you say yes to that moment, and that's, again, what I'm all about.
Saying yes to that moment, or having the arch fiend hovering over you? Arch food fiend, I'm sorry. Arch
yes.
Food. Yes, the arch food is what you're all about.
Saying yes, yes. Saying at all times, yes, I'm going to participate in this moment, in this food moment that I'm all like sharing with all of the people around me that eat food and sometimes think about eating it, and even those that don't.
Huh. Yeah, I think a lot of people have said that's the best way to be in a relationship with another person. It's the best way to be in a comedy troupe, as opposed to saying, no, don't talk about video games.
Absolutely. No, don't talk about it.
No, you should say yes. Let's talk about it.
You should say yes.
So magical. Why am I blanking on the name of it? You were just talking about it. I know the name. I can't.
It might be because I make just kind of a word salad, like whenever I'm thinking about a game. Fjords is actually kind of singular in that respect. That I've moved away from that naming practice in recent years, and I've just been trying to get like ow.
Oh, that's another one.
Is similar to Fjords in that it only has one word in the title, whereas a lot of my other games, like Together Fight, Friendly Hat Spirit, they have significantly more than one word.
Yeah, that's kind of a super team. That's kind of your Justice League in my mind.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that one. It's it answers the question, what if a bunch of babies could do anything? Well, they would wear hats.
That is a question that a lot of people have tried to answer. But you answered it in a way that I didn't know that was the question. It made me feel a little bit like Super Mario Brothers 3 and Earthbound and Nyan Cat. Nyan Cat together. Made me feel all those things, but other things too. It wasn't just like things I'd already seen. It was like its own thing, for sure.
Yeah, a lot of people have really enjoyed the opportunity to like play a bullet hell shmup at the same time as trying to remember like fighting game combinations, because those are two game experiences that are really open and accessible to a lot of people. And I thought, why don't I take these two really accessible genres and smash them together into one game and put a glossy veneer of cute babies over the top of everything. So I'm pretty pleased with my success of making a completely accessible casual game where you enter in Street Fighter combinations at the same time as dodging hundreds and hundreds of bullets.
It's funny you mentioned that. There's a game that might be made that I try to talk about frequently called Cat Girl Without Salad. I don't know if you've heard of it.
No, I haven't. It sounds like it has like 3 things at least in it that I enjoy. So
it's kind of like, as I'm getting to know you, it's kind of like you if it gets made. And that's a compliment.
Made.
Yeah, it might.
Thank you.
Oh, anytime. I will keep you abreast of that. I don't want to talk about it too much because we only have so much time with you.
Oh, of course. So if there are any other compliments that you have, please let me know as soon as you're about to make them. I want to be ready to receive them.
Sure, I will warn you next time.
You can compliment me, for example, about my hair right now. I think we were talking about that earlier. So
I almost did. Have you always... Yes. Are you prepared?
I think so.
Yeah. Have you always had cool hair?
Well, sadly, no. But like anything in game development, if you want to do something, you just have to keep doing it until you have done it. So at one point, many points, almost all points, I did not have good hair. But I said, I'm tired of this. I'm going to look up some hair tutorials. I'm going to figure it out. So I sat down with my computer and I looked up hair, and it's really difficult to find a really welcoming and accepting forum for hair, but once you do, like, having that community of people that can support you and really, like, give you meaningful feedback about your hair has been really important to my continued success. So I'd like to thank a lot of people at this point for my hair success. Ian Snyder is somebody who's provided a lot of really granular, detailed feedback about my hair in the past, and I think that I'm really excited about his upcoming hair projects, and my hair projects have benefited immeasurably from his exhaustive beta testing, and also again from having feedback at a really protoplasmic state almost, where that's not the right word, but you can replace it with anyone that you feel that is going to be more appropriate. Also, Brandon Boyer and also Brandon Boyer, both ways that I say his name, as well as the third name that I say for him, Brandon Piplep in my mind. I'm sorry that I didn't make you a Turtwig, because Piplep, it's not my first choice, and not even my second choice or third choice most of the time. All of those are ghost types, but they're not available at the start of that Pokemon, so I'm sorry, Brandon, but Piplup was the best accommodation that I could make in that circumstance. But he's been amazingly supportive to me in my continued hair success as well, so that's also been, really important to me, to have somebody that has a significantly wider podium that they can use to discuss with the wider community how your hair is progressing. And when I was really ready, that singular moment in time when I burst forth saying, now is the time to look at my hair, he was there for me, so thanks. There's a lot of other people that I've tried to mention specifically by name and the many variables that are included in the README INI file of Fjords. Draken has been really helpful to me, and again, to the development of my haircraft. And Draken is one of the 4 scientists that you have to locate and then reset if you have come to that unfortunate circumstance where you have delivered all of the pizzas and given away all of your power. So Draken, look for him. README INI, very important. Jonathan Whiting has also been really a huge help to me, and Jasper Byrne, and the last one. How could I forget Michael Brock, of course. So thank you, all of you, for continuing to help me as my hair has proceeded to the state in which you find it today.
And in Fjords, you talked a bit about Fjords in there. People might not know it is a game about delivering pizzas.
Oh, yes, it is. That's what it's about.
That is what it's about. And there's little pizza graphics in there. Sometimes they're green pizza graphics.
Yes, I was limited by the palette that we all decided on for the Sharecart 1000 initiative. So it was difficult to communicate, again, some of the instantiations of pizza using that palette, but I feel pretty happy most of all with the communication of pizza and that medium for pizza delivery.
It's a game where you have a grappling hook that goes up. And sometimes. That is a frustrating kind of grappling hook, but one that made me feel I see, he's not just going to hand this to me. It immediately got me thinking, I'm going to have to work on this. Then I found out I can program my own grappling hook and/or bombs and magic and ladders instead of waterfalls in order to get around in the world. How did you make a game? What made you think you should do that? How did you do that?
Well, Fjords is the best expression of the Sharecart 1000 variables that I could muster at the time of its development. So when the Sharecart program just started to get going, I thought, well, I was looking at all of the different variables and how could I express these the most completely and perfectly? And at first I thought, well, what does everybody want at the beginning of the day when you wake up, when you're thinking about the progression of events that will assail you throughout the day? What do you want? You want a grappling hook. And so the grappling hook was one of the earlier accommodations that I made for movement through the terrible and sublime landscape that would eventually become the final expression of Sharecart 1000 and the Science Mountain. Now, after that being said, there were 9 other variables that had to be populated, and so I had to come up with 9 other things that would allow you varying degrees of success and agency, and that was tricky.
Oh, I'm sure. The bombs. Boy, are they tricky. Yeah.
Yeah. Making the bomb sounds is one of the many joys that I hold close to my heart when I think about all the things that I'm happiest about in my life. It really was just, I think, saying the sound "boo" and then multi-tracking it over and over again until it made my head want to split in half, and then I knew it was just about ready. So I highly recommend setting bombs to true, putting headphones on, turning it all the way up, and just going nuts. Like that, just like really, do yourself a favor.
So setting bombs to true in the game. So people who
Mm-hmm.
don't know, you're a little Lode Runner-ish type gentleman. That's how I saw it. Maybe it's a woman. I can't tell. Lode Runner avatar, and you can answer the phone, which makes great sounds.
Yes.
Or you can go to the computer and then code yourself and your world a little bit. Code bombs to true, for instance. And there's so many directions I want to go with this conversation. I want to know more about Sharecart 1000 because people may not know who are watching. I want to know if you like Chibi Robo. Because
my gosh, yes.
Could you make the next Chibi Robo?
I feel like rather than make the next Chibi Robo, I just want someone else to make me 5 Chibi Robos, and then I want to play them until the end of time. Like I want on the end of the world stage, like as everything collapses into fire and static, I want to be standing next to Chibi Robo. Like if there was one video game friend that I would like to have materialize right now, pop out of the wall socket or something, come over and give me a high five, it would be Chibi Robo. Chibi Robo.
I can agree with that. I could just say that Chibi Robo. Chibi Robo.
Like the answer to all questions, Chibi Robo, like is a satisfactory answer as far as I'm concerned. Like, why won't the cat stop bumping the laptop and making my image go all jittery? Well, Chibi Robo. Actually, you know. And there you have it.
Yeah, indeed. Was Chibi Robo an influence on the sound effects? Because that's one of the things I thought was like, this guy gets Chibi Robo. I can tell by the effects. Or maybe it's unrelated. Maybe it's a coincidence.
Definitely, I've played a lot of the GameCube game and enjoyed particularly when you're scrubbing anything and that like lovely little guitar that happens. And I'll say that the sound effects in Fjords that were not made with my actual mouth were made with a ukulele. So those are the two things that you hear in Fjords. You hear me just going and you hear a ukulele at key moments. So everything recorded through a Nintendo DS microphone and then pitch bent like in the game like at real time. So that's how everything is made.
Wow.
Yes. So speaking plainly about the thing that I've made, who knew that this conversation would lead us to this particular precipice? Here we go. And Chibi Robo is a huge influence, but also all of anything ever that David Kanaga has done, like particularly the Mario 64 like remix video where he rescored Mario 64, maybe it was Mario Galaxy. It was Mario Galaxy, I think.
I don't know if I've seen that. What's that?
Look those up. They're super fun. He did a couple of alternate like reactive scores to like an Assassin's Creed game and a Mario game, and talked about how sound design should be so much more. I mean, music design, sound design. I'm going to butcher all of his ideas, but that really having a truly reactive score and having a lot more granularity and musical response, like as you move through the world, will make players more capable of producing their own. I think of it as like their own musical path through the game, and that scoring can be so much more of a dynamic thing than this like canned like instruments that happen, that we think of musicality in games as this really limited like rhythmic thing, and that there are so many more interesting play rhythms that you discover when you just basically make everything react to the player's presence in the game. And that's a lot about like what Proteus is about, is like moving through this amazing generated just for you world, and then having that world react to your presence as if it knows that you're there, but without it knowing that you're there, because that's important too. So that you just kind of feel your own presence move through the world, and it's this musical sort of association. Happy times. Word salad's going to happen now. It's just no stopping it. It's just going to keep coming. Words just going to tumble out of my mouth because I have a quota to fill, and I'm going to fill it, the words, and now we are done. Okay.
All right, awesome. When did you start making music?
I have been making music a lot longer than I've been making games. I don't really know exactly how long, at least a decade or so. Like, really fond of taking things that are fascinating to me, like the underground creatures, and that's the only thing that's fascinating to me, it turns out. So, and writing songs about them that use like a lot of like weird and aleatoric instruments that get captured in one way or another and smashed into some kind of a beat because I'm not as bold as Kanaga and making completely rhythmless, not rhythmless, but rhythmless in the sense that it's not a regular rhythm music. So a lot of, I really enjoy like a lot of circuit bending and modifying things in a really blind, unfeeling way to make unexpected noises.
It sounds great. I hope you keep making it. Have you done the soundtracks for all of your games?
Yes, except for notably a lot of Mulder's Totally Bogus Rabbit Journey was music that was part of that was done for the assembly competition that TigSource was doing a while ago, where the first round everybody would just make a bunch of assets, like music assets or graphics or whatever, and then public domain them, and then everybody in the second round would take as many of those things as they could and make a game out of them. So all of the graphics were done by, I'm going to make a pronunciation that I've never made out loud before. Ooft. It's like he did all these like little tiny animals that were really cute, and I was like, oh, I love these. And somebody else made a tile set that I thought was really nice. And then there are some, it's been a while, so I can't remember where all of the different music comes from. I did compose some of the stuff that's in the latter half of the game, but everything in the first part of the game was just using the competition stuff.
And you got into making the code for a game. That is hard. You are clearly someone who can take an idea and continue to let it unravel in real time in front of your own face. These things are just happening to your face. You're like,
yes, of course.
Whereas coding, you don't get to do that as much, from my understanding. It's hard to kind of do improv coding. It's a language that's very specific. Or am I wrong? Because I'm interested how coding works with your brain.
Definitely, this is something that coding was a harder thing for me to learn, but I think the fact that I can do it, like, really want to stress, I believe that anybody, given time and resources and help and whatever, like, can learn to do it. It's just a matter of having a lot of support, and I was fortunate that when I wanted to learn how to do it, I was using GameMaker, and Derek, you had already posted these amazing tutorials on how to make things in GameMaker and kind of how to set up your own game loops and make things blow up, which is, of course, the true purpose of all video games, is to make things blow up, the sublime calling that we all answer to at some point or another. So I was like, I want to learn how to do this to make things that are very important. So I did. Anybody can do it. I've been actually really interested in, I am a second grade teacher, and getting my students to start learning how to do some programming basics and like have them have opportunities to do this themselves, because the fact that it's seen as this big mystical thing that's really hard to do, a lot of my code is copying and pasting things, thinking about why they don't work for 2 days, and then getting them to work just by trying things out until they do what I want them to do. And sometimes that means discovering I can't make the kind of game that I want to make, and sometimes it means that I make something like Fjords, which was originally conceived as like well, I'm just going to throw everything into this GameMaker file and see what happens, and 9 months later it emerged as the thing that maybe you will see, and maybe you'll be like, that guy just talks forever and ever, and how's he even breathing? I'm doing it really strategically because phrasing is really important to music as well, and you can code.
Oh, awesome. That was a nice cap you put on that phrase.
Trying as much as I can to provide those caps. So.
And Fjords, or not, whatever you want to do. Fjords does encourage me to feel like I could code a little bit. It is almost a game about making a game.
That makes me happy.
Oh, yeah, that's true. It's totally true. Was that the intent? What was the intent of Fjords?
I would say the intent of Fjords is that I made this really cool pizza graphic and I wanted to put it somewhere in the game. So all of Fjords grew outward from that original, like, malignant idea that I still have not managed to route out of my own body to my satisfaction. So all of my games, I think, have this food core to them. Their food is really... consumption is really exciting to me and very weird and gross, and I want as many opportunities to experience it as I can. So Fjords was an opportunity to grow an enclosed universe around a pizza. And once that had happened, it was revealed to me how terrifying that is, to grow a universe around a single object. So I would say that that's probably why a lot of Fjords feels so uncomfortable to play. And it is uncomfortable. So if you're enjoying the game, I will make you not enjoy it at a certain point. That was my goal, was that like you really be allowed through the power of programming to butt up against the boundaries of the universe that has grown up around a pizza and really like feel that with the palm of your hand and feel how abjectly terrifying that is.
And it's a game that the easily frustrated might give up on, but you give us enough feeling that there's a chance that if we just try a little bit harder, or try something new, or just throw in some code and see what happens, we might get lucky, and our skills might be greater than we think they are, which is something that kids take to all the time. From what I gather, a kid doesn't think, oh, I can rely on my years of skills to get through this new video game. They think, oh, I've got to poke at everything and hope that I get lucky one of these times. And that's, I think, why kids end up sticking with Minecraft for the length that they do. And just in general, my sense is a kid might have an easier time learning how to code than an adult would, and you were alluding to that earlier.
Oh yeah.
Do you think
totally.
that does it take a childlike sense of expectation of failure and acceptance, like pre-acceptance of failure, and the ability to power through any sort of mix you might have to make a game like you have, and to play a game like the games you've made?
Yeah, I think that just things that I've noticed about kids I've taught for about 5 years, which is not a huge amount of time, but it is more than 1 year or 2 years or even 3 years, and it's a little bit more than 4 years. So I've noticed that children have different experiences with adversity based on how they've encountered school, for example. Like, there are students that I have that are very intelligent students that most things come easily to them, and oftentimes in my classroom we make it a general, like it's like a guiding principle almost, that you will encounter difficulty, and that it's what you do when you encounter difficulty and failure that's really important. And it's really uncomfortable for kids who are accustomed to success to encounter difficulty or failure. And a lot of like making my classroom a really supportive and encouraging place is providing them with the understanding that sometimes you will fail at things, and that's okay, because that's your opportunity to learn something. And a lot of kids that actually school has become really difficult to them for the first couple of years of their life, that they've had a hard time acclimating to kindergarten and first grade, when they arrive in second grade, and they're used to school being difficult. So when they encounter a problem that requires critical thinking or requires lateral thinking, or all the other thinkings that exist, that they are more accustomed to just keep like hammering at a problem. And that perseverance is something that like I want to encourage and provide an environment to play with in my games as well as in my classroom. So providing support and encouragement, and sometimes in a game that is a little bit different than standing next to somebody and helping them, figure out their paragraph structure. But like, I tried to make Fjords a universe that would always yield if you pushed on it in whatever direction. So you can go anywhere you want in that game. You just have to think about how to get there. And that's, I guess, the only encouragement that I can give to somebody who is looking at that singing telephone and saying, God damn it, just shut up, I don't know where you are. So
I was encouraged just by enjoying being there. And all of the little things that I imagine after a while you might be incapable of not taking them for granted, because you must be really used to you and your sounds and your graphics and all that. But I just enjoyed hearing the things and seeing the things and discovering what they would do next. That alone made all of those times I blew myself up or magicked myself feel totally worth it, and all the more interesting. Uh-oh, I have a cat down here.
Yeah, mine's moved over there, and so she's given up on the idea of like petting like herself with the corner of the computer. So I'm pretty excited about that.
That's good. I'm a little nervous. What made you want to make and this might relate to Sharecart 1000, which we should talk about for the people who don't know, but also Fjords, different kind of screen size than I was used to. Those are two questions. Tell me about both of them.
Yeah, that's a short answer that will become a longer answer, like every answer does with me. But Dark Souls is the answer to the screen size. That's why I wanted to make it that size.
Tell me more. That's not what I expected at all.
I love Dark Souls. It's been a game that has consumed me many times over. It's the game that probably has like 2 sticks that I've spent the most time with. And I love the verticality of Dark Souls and how dense the design is. Like, the level design in Dark Souls encourages you to, like, I mean, it pushes you down very obvious after you've traversed them paths, but you don't feel like they're obvious when you're moving through them. You feel like, I'm deciding to go up this hill. And I imagine the designer kind of sitting over like my shoulder, kind of like sneezing into their hands and then laughing at the same time, because that's the sound that people make when you're doing what they want you to do. So like that verticality and that having the feeling, the experience of walking from the top of Lortrin, like all the way to the bottom and going down that awful, awful tree and arriving at the very bottom of that world, I wanted that feeling to be in Fjords somehow. So that I just made the screen vertical to kind of force myself to design vertical levels.
Huh. And you are constantly, thanks to the grappling hook as well, thinking, how high can I get in order to even move to the right for people who haven't played Fjords? And you can play Fjords if you even have like $1.31 right now.
Mm-hmm.
33?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's $1.30. It was supposed to be $1.31 because I like to make like really long decimal appendations. I don't know if that's a word. It is now. Fjords, when it first went on sale for $4 and 4044404.079 because that number is personally important to Fjords, which you know if you've purchased any of the companion materials that go with it. Rendered and brought into being by the lovely Jacob Smiley, who I owe a million thanks to because he's an amazing human and he draws and paints amazing things. Bark. And so yes, it's on sale right now. It'll be off sale midnight, and then I'm going to put it on sale on the first of the year. It'll go up to $9. So that'll be something that you can look forward to if you want to spend more money than I originally charged for it. It'll be $9 on the first of the year.
I will ask you later, not now. I will ask you later if you can put it on sale again when this rerun comes on. Because there's 1,000, 2,000, who knows, maybe 100,000 people will hear this or watch this when the rerun happens, but then they'll be like, this was pre-recorded. I wanted to get this on sale now. Now I can't. You lied to me. Because pre-recording doesn't actually, our subconscious doesn't compute that.
Right.
When you hear someone talking to you,
I did say I would lie, however. I have lied about half the things I've said today.
Yeah, that's a good ratio. That'll keep
about half. It's actually less than I normally do. So because I'm really excited to be on Holmes, so I wanted to make sure that I had some more truth to impart than I normally do. So I've tried to not lie as much. When Brandon had me down, I say Brandon, but it was also Brandon and Wiley and Josh and all of those guys that do Fantastic Arcade. I lied the entire time. I didn't tell the truth once while I was down there. So I wanted to kind of make up for that again. So that's why I'm doing this right now.
Or you're lying about that too. It's hard to know, which is part of the fun.
I promise I'm not lying about that.
Are any other games on consoles? I was hearing one of them's going to come to PS Mobile, or already is?
Already is. Actually, Magic Planet Snack game, again, if you don't remember when I talked about it for 5 minutes, was about devouring the entire universe in the service of finding a friend. So that game, which I think fits into the genre of dodging things, eating things, which is a really popular genre with the kids nowadays, is available on PSM right now. And it was Wolfgame that helped us with the port for that, and that was nice of them. They are good.
PSN, like PlayStation 3 even?
No, it's on Vita, so you can play it on Vita, and it is fun on Vita, but I don't have a Vita, but I would like to have one at some point. I like playing the original game. I actually try and make sure that I use some amazing procedural generation in all of my games a little bit so that I can play them in the future, because any game is made better with procedural generation. That's just a fact. So,
people
even
are talking about that. Yeah,
yes,
please.
even highly authored experiences my beloved Another World, if you made that a procedurally generated game where sometimes you ended up in that pond and you're drifting downwards, and instead of a snake reaching up to grab you, the snake reached down from the top of the screen, would have been way better. So or sometimes from the side, like you would never know, and it's just more exciting when you can't finish something. So that's why I think that that's necessary for all game designers right now. 2 messages for you. 1, you can make games even if you don't know how. 2, procedurally generate everything, because then it is good.
Yeah, and a mix of that with some intended design, but it makes it more like a living being. In fact, I was thinking, can we even review video games? Because it's kind of like reviewing just a dog or your mom. I can't review my mom.
I can review your dog for you if you'd like. I would say that the bark, definitely 9 out of 10 bark. Would have been a 10 if it continued for a little bit longer, but definitely 9 out of 10, nothing to be ashamed of. However, the dog's face, gonna drop down to a 7 out of 10 for that. Like, it's yeah, it's just because I haven't seen it, Like, I wasn't able to play the dog long enough to experience, like, all of what the dog had to offer. I think that a tutorial for your dog would probably, like, if it led me through the dog experience in a really, like, measured, well-sloped way, like, that would go a lot towards improving my experience. So I'm willing to revise my review in the future if you patch the dog. So just something to keep in mind. For the dog, I'm assuming, like, just because I've experienced some of your past dog works, like, that's probably about an 8 or a 9. Probably.
You're getting a message from Sinistar to lean back a bit or tilt your camera down a few degrees. Oh yeah, now you're in the middle. Oh, now you're too high.
Oh, what I was just trying to, like, connect with the audience by leaning into the camera, because when you watch TV, like as I do sometimes, and you're watching actors, it's the most meaningful when they're looking directly into your eyes. So I love that, all of those moments in The Wire when they looked directly at the camera and said, I love you, Kyle. Thanks for watching The Wire. So just trying to make sure that experience happens for all of your viewers.
I appreciate that. Growing up.
Mention that show because it's the only television show aside from Gilligan's Island that you can watch anymore. It's Hulu's been having a really hard time in our house, like, getting anything else, but both of those things, like, are available through Hulu. So that's why I mentioned Hulu. Yeah. If you don't have them on your Hulu, you have the wrong Hulu.
Gilligan's Island and The Wire.
Gilligan's Island and The Wire, 2 really good shows for the same reason, exactly the same reason.
When did you think to yourself, I'm going to make a video game? When did you think that first time?
I've wanted to make video games for a really long time. I was in college, I think. I remember, actually, I was, like, sitting on the couch in, like, student housing in a specific apartment called the Wembley with 3 other guys that I like a lot. And actually, one of those guys is responsible for setting he's the other reason that I made Fjords was that he had a song that he made that was he used a vocoder, and he was really, like, excited about it all the time. And I was excited about it as well. And in our excitement, we listened to it, and that feed me, you know what I love, pizza. That was him. So, but I was sitting on that couch, and I really wanted to make video games, and I thought to myself, I will learn how to code in Objective-C, because that seems easy to do right now. And I got as far as making a little box with 2 little legs, like, drift to the left and to the right and up and down, and I now know that that's farther than a lot of people get, and it was awful, and I thought, this is stupid and no one can do it. So then I gave up for a long time, and then I was working at a video store called Rain City Video, and I had a lot of free time after doing store inventory one day, and I also had access to Microsoft Paint. And then so I made a lot of blocks in Microsoft Paint, and I made a lot of blocks in Microsoft Paint because Anna Anthropy had just done this thing about Bubble Bobble, and she'd done this, like, really cool, like, 3D thing with some of the Bubble Bobble blocks, and I thought, wow, I love how that looks. I want to make blocks. So I made a bunch of blocks, and then I made a bunch of foods, and then I looked up Game Maker when I got home, and then some tutorials happened in Magic Planet Snacks. So it's been a long road of not very well signposted information.
Yeah, how long ago was that you first heard the Feed Me song?
Let's see, I graduated from... Time is really difficult for me. I want to say yesterday, but I know that's wrong. So, like, it's Maybe
You see-
at least 5 extra days
At
beyond
least
yesterday.
maybe as far back
So-
as last week. Yes.
You know how like the rabbits in Watership Down, they can't count higher than 5. Like that's kind of how it is with me in the past. So it makes it really difficult to have any concrete understanding of what's happening outside of the year that I'm in. But that is a good year. So
Yeah, it's like a blessing and a curse in a lot of
it's
ways.
it sort of is. Like I have a lot of like scattered moments that I remember again, like and can communicate not very well. I want to say it was like 2003 when I first attempted to make a video game and failed.
That's a long time ago. You
That
seem
is a
so
long-
young.
Mhm.
Yeah, like I would guess, if you were to say guess my age, I would say like 23,
Mm-hmm.
4 maybe. So when you talk about college being 10 years ago and having taught
Yes.
for 5 years, I'm picturing you as like a 13-year-old in college, or
Mhm.
teaching kindergarten at the age 18 or something along those lines. Is that what happened?
It kind of feels like that sometimes, but the dark rites that I have to continue to perform to keep my youth and vitality like prevent me from having any concrete recollection of if that is the case. But I will say that I find my work as an elementary school teacher and dark rites practitioner and vitality absorber like really engaging. So I'm just trying to like pass on as many of the horrific ideals that I carry of self-determination and gratitude and all of those disgusting things we teach in elementary school for as long as possible. So it has been necessary to conduct a lot of arcane rituals to make sure that that can be the case.
That's perfectly understandable.
I'm 29.
On your blog, Laser
Mhm.
Cats. Sure, everyone
Yes.
should check out. Cats with a Z.
Yes, laser with a Z also. I've heard now that laser's not spelled that way, and I don't know when that changed, but it's really disappointing.
It's hugely disappointing, but I guess that makes it all the more creative for you to use the Z on
You
both
would
sides.
think so, but a lot of people have told me that there's this show called Saturday Night Live that has something to do with cats firing lasers, which is, I think, the most... it's great.
Really? Huh.
Yeah. I
haven't seen that show in a while.
It's good to have cats, I think, and also to have lasers and to combine them in as many ways and variable, like conditions as you possibly can. However, like when I'm talking about laser cats, I'm really just talking about astral projection. So I don't know exactly like how people can make the association between the two things, and it's frustrating to have to continue to explain otherwise.
Yeah.
But yes, my blog, I have one.
Yes, you do. On there, you mentioned Fjords had some connection to...
That Cat's Tale, 5 out of 5, definitely.
Yeah, he's all
Very
right.
good.
He's kind of a jerk a lot of the time.
Mhm.
That's another story. Now I'm forgetting the name of the game because Cat distracted me. It was a Nintendo game, but not in the way that people usually think. I believe it was Star Tropics.
Yes, Star Tropics. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did you play that when it first came out? Or did
Yes.
you discover that later?
That was actually a rental. My friend rented it, and I was staying the night over at his house. And this was where a lot of like my Nintendo experiences came from, because I did not have a Nintendo growing up, and so all of my friendships served the access to Nintendo. So I made friends specifically so I could play Nintendo. After the Nintendo, became less popular and the Super Nintendo took over, it was necessary to restructure my friendship priorities. This was painful for some, because I was so popular all the time, as you can tell by my priorities growing up. So yeah, Star Tropics. I remember we played it like to death that one night, and it was just so impenetrable to us as like 8-year-olds or something. I don't remember how old I was, and so I pick 8 as the default number for when I, played Nintendo. But I remember that there was like a lot of like trying to find your dad, and you got consumed by a whale at some point, and there were some aliens involved, but I didn't know about that until later, so I've just inserted that memory into my past self so that I can remember it now, because we didn't get that far in the game. I loved, like, my absolute favorite experience that I talk about in this blog post that you were referring to is there's one moment early on in the game where you're just kind of exploring this dungeon and having a good time, bopping things on the head with your yo-yo and killing them because video games, and then you go through a door and you drown. Like, there's no way not. It's just, you just pop through, and it's a lake. and you're just like, oh shit, I am in this lake. I have come to terms with the fact that I am in this lake. I have died. This is my fault somehow. It's not your fault. The designers just decided to punk you. They said, we're going to put a lake here. You're going to go in there because you want treasure, and there's no treasure. There's only death. And I love that. That's what I want to provide for all of my, like anybody that has the good fortune of playing one of my games. Like at least one moment where I say, surprise, you're trapped forever. Isn't it fun to think about, like, what if this was all there was? So,
I love that about the first Metroid game, too. Though Joachim Sandberg has gotten annoyed with me, as he does. I don't know if you know Joachim. He's working on Iconoclasts. He did...
I know of him. I think he does beautiful, beautiful things.
He really does.
I do not know him personally, but his well, I mean, like, it's stupid to break a game down into its component parts, but I love Know to Love, and I love things that he's done. So, anyway, sorry.
Yeah, me too. Oh, not at all. He's a classic grump, though. And if you say something that, like, annoys him, he'll just be like,
no,
what did I say?
Nope. Nope.
Pretty much. I was talking about how I loved in the first Metroid, it felt so true to life to me that if you're running around on an alien planet with no direction, really, there's barely any reason why you're there, you're probably going to fall into a pit that looks like every other pit and get really confused and sad and end up wanting to restart because you're so frustrated. That felt pretty real. That's happened to me in real life. I can't even name the amount of times I've wanted to press restart.
I have fallen in so many pits.
Have you?
Yes,
Tell
just
me
so
more.
many. Well, just like, I mean, there are just pits everywhere, and it's just, before I got used to just the way that's the way the world is, you know, I thought, can we do something about these pits? And I would be angry if I encountered a pit. But you're right, like, it's so telling how we feel about pits, just like how many we encounter, what pits there are, what their names are. What our friends think of pits. Pit
All
thoughts.
of those pits.
Pitfall.
It's one of my favorite games.
Video games, yes. Oh, I love Pitfall. Absolutely. Like, I'm much more familiar as a kid with, like, the Atari 2600 and Commodore 64. I don't want to say era because I feel like there are many different eras, and people that had Amigas, you were really lucky for one because you got the best version of Lemmings, but also, like, there are, like, all these different, like, you know, families of computers, and they're like, you have to know about them and just, like, draw elaborate family trees for them, and I had a really fragmented experience of computing because it was just whatever somebody happened to have. My grandma had a Commodore 64, and so I have an experience with the Commodore 64. We had a lot of
had a Commodore
my grandma did. Yes.
Tell me more about that grandma, please.
Well, she's wonderful. I love her immeasurably. I think that she was an educator like a lot of people in my family, and so I've gotten a lot, I think, of just curiosity and, like, wanting to constantly learn more, and also having access to a Commodore 64. That was the best, like, being able to spend hours putting a floppy disk into a floppy disk drive and saying, why won't this work, like, was really, like, honestly formative for me. I really believe that there are not that many experiences that children get to have with computers where you have this, like, completely impenetrable thing saying nope, and you have to say, well, yes, actually, and then finally it's like, okay. Computers now are televisions. Like, you just turn your computer on and you do stuff with it. You get to swipe, and you get to pinch, and you get to zoom, and, you know, you get to press buttons sometimes if your computer still has buttons, and then things happen that you want them to happen. Like, it's just not to say that having computers that are difficult to use is good, because it's not, but having computers that you can use to do whatever you want, and you have to learn how to do whatever it is that you want to do. Not too many children anymore have the experience of saying, I want to make this computer do something, and I can learn how to do it. It's more like, this computer is the best Angry Birds vessel that I have ever encountered, and that's what I want to do with it. And that's not like me saying get off my lawn or anything like that. It's just we're very used to consuming technology through our computers anymore, and they're not expressive, creative tools. And I want more children to have the experience of saying, computers are what I want to use to make whatever it is that I want to make, and I just want to explore this computer, and maybe I'll destroy it, and I'm sorry, Mom and Dad, for destroying 2 computers when I was younger by just formatting them just to see what would happen, but I want kids to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hate to keep
But
talking
I am sorry, Mom and Dad, because you're watching right now, obviously.
Yeah, of course they are. And
yes.
What if? And it occurred to me that your students might grow up and watch this someday. Do you want to give them a message if, when they grow up, you Google you in their recollection of that funny, cool teacher who was just a little bit different than the rest and made them feel special? And then they're like, oh, I wonder if he's on the Google. And they find this. What would you want to tell them?
Keep updating your dazzling word compendiums. Really important. Having a large working vocabulary will help you in so many ways. 2, don't ever let anybody tell you that something is impossible to do, but also some things are really, really hard, and so it's okay if they feel that way. And 3, like, we all benefit in so many ways from everybody that helps us along, so like, just keep those people in your thoughts all the time, because we all need each other.
That's great.
Pizza.
We should talk about the Fjords supplemental material before I forget.
Sure.
We're doing okay for time, but this is a show where I feel ready to forget all the time.
Yes.
There's so many great moments that are just happening for me. Time isn't necessarily my friend on this episode. So there's a Fjords.
It's not mine either, really. Sorry.
It's a strategy guide magazine. What is it? And there's a tape too, audio tape.
Yes, there was a tape, and now I've sold all the tapes. And so there might be a tape in the future. Actually, I've alluded as much. But right now, there are no more tapes. But, I mean, there are. You just have to go find the people that bought them and take it from them. But I've also told those people that might be happening, so they might try and prevent you from doing that also. But property is theft. And but buy my stuff.
And they could go to your Bandcamp, download those songs, and make their own tape, I suppose.
You totally could, and I encourage people to do that. I can also go ahead and provide you with the image of the pizza slice that I've manipulated to make the cover, and the image of the boat that I've manipulated to make the back cover. It's going to be more difficult for me to provide you with the printout that my printer at school made when I told it to print too many things at once, and it refused, and then printed a large block of garbage that I thought was so amazing and beautiful that it became the inside of the tape. But I will endeavor to do that as well, because if you want to play or experience my things, I want you to encourage you to take all avenues possible so that you can think about me. So do that. But yeah, I work together with Jacob Smiley, who I mentioned earlier. He's an illustrator and a painter and a person, and he lives in New York, and he is marvelous. And I really like the things that he does, and he has done some things for Fangamer that you can buy, like this isometric Mario print that he made recently that is just, oh my gosh, it makes me want to throw up since it's so good. But we worked together on the zine. Like, I sent him a bunch of drawings and some thoughts about how the world was, and he turned those things into amazing pictures, and then we printed it, and it is intended to help you not give up at playing Fjords.
That's great.
And there's also some stuff that is layered through in a kind of Bible code way in the zine that will enable you to access experiences that other people might not necessarily have had. So I'm just going to lean back until I knock over this this bunny screen behind me and mention that if you think you've seen everything in Fjords, you haven't. The only person that's seen everything is Wade McGillis, who is working on the iOS port of Fjords at the moment and is responsible for the OS X version of Fjords. And he has seen but not comprehended the whole, which is what I can say is true about all of us. Actually, there was a really interesting game to produce since it was impossible for me to exhaustively test. So a lot of the exhortations that are on fjords.com are sincere. I need you to find things that are broken in the game that might not be the way that they're intended to be, because I might not have seen them.
Yeah, it's a game with so many variables and at the kind of depth that feels like it does have a life of its own, like my mom or my dog, which is why I would have a tough time reviewing it. So when you say that only one person
I just give it 10 out of 10. It's the best video game that exists. I mean, we're all done now, so it's unfortunate that you've just purchased a new PlayStation 4 and or Xbone, because, I mean, we're done. It's over.
Fjords.
Fjords.
Done.
The alpha and the omega.
Do you think it would ever come to those? Do you think it would ever come to those consoles? It's exciting to hear it's coming to iOS. Could you ever see it on a console?
I would love that. What I think of when I think of Fjords is I think of a ball of dark energy that gradually grows to consume all matter and all life. So, like, I really would love it to be on as many consoles as possible. There are development challenges. For example, when you are entirely self-taught and think nothing of putting 5,000 lines of code in a gigantic if-else tree in your player character, for example, and then spreading out some other things throughout all of the various objects that Game Maker so cordially allows you to put in your game. It's difficult to port these things. Also, its involvement in the Sharecart 1000 initiative makes it necessarily difficult to wrangle into an appropriate form for the significantly narrower PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, or even the PlayStation 7.
Skipping the 6. We should talk about the Sharecart 1000 initiative for those who don't know
very
about
important.
it. What is that?
So Sharecart 1000 is, like I said, a set of, I consider them to be, but there are many different epistemologies like the play here. So this is just my opinion, some sacred variables that have their expression and manipulation not only in the game that you're currently playing, but also games that they share proximity or... I need another word for proximity, but I'm too far away.
Physical...
Close. Closeness. Intimacy. There we are.
Intimacy.
That share a certain intimacy with other games. So, for example, if you take Fjords, which is one expression of Sharecart 1000, and you download it and you put it in the same directory as Post-Future Vagabond by Michael Brogg, for example, and you play Fjords, it's sharing a save file with Post-Future Vagabond, and there are certain things that will happen in one game if you choose to do them in the other, and vice versa.
So
Sharecart1000.com has a current compendium of all of these games that include like other people like Damian Summers and Draken always said that he was going to do one, but he has not.
Not too late, though, I think.
Not too late, no, because it's an initiative that will continue until people don't remember that it exists anymore. So our goal is to replace all of the current human culture with Sharecart culture so that people just get used to the paradigm that Sharecart is trying to put forth, which is that we all share a common memory and we corrupt and overwrite it constantly with the results of our actions.
Oh, that's what I think Tetris is about.
I'm still looking forward to a Sharecart version of Tetris so that Tetris can like really inhabit what was its original intended form. Which
is everything that's happening kind of plants itself on top of what already happened. And we're just trying to integrate the next moment into our collection of stored moments before we die, and we're going to...
Absolutely. And everyone will.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, except for me.
Well, that's a relief. Fjords, the graphics. You have done so many different types of art directions for your games. Or at least 2, at least maybe even 4. Fjords being the most commercial in terms of it is sold commercially. Your other games, I think, are available for free.
They all are, yes.
Yeah. Fjords, you were like, time to sell a game because I worked on it for so long, and maybe there's other reasons that you'll tell us. But you also made it without a cute, cartoony character like an Ow, where it's like an adorable little blob, and it's
actually the Incredible Hulk. Yes.
My mistake.
I mean, I can't believe you didn't catch that. I just, I expect like at least like a level of oversight. Somebody like would say, hey, it's the Incredible Hulk. I mean, come on. Like, I have clearly alluded to the Incredible Hulk being present in Terry Kavanaugh's mouth. Like, I mean, it's a known fact. Like,
this is true. It's a known.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a known.
Yeah, Rumsfeld would say. And then the babies flying through the air.
Yes.
You have those adorable babies. Fjords, you have what looks to me a Pitfall Lode Runner-ish type icon for person, without any of that cute cuddliness to go along with it. Was that an intentional move on your part that you didn't want Fjords to have that immediate,
just sell itself.
Yeah, immediately marketable face on it.
Yeah, I think that Fjords, like, honestly, that I was saying hello to a person that you can't see, and everybody.
Fair enough.
I see many people throughout the course of my day, and some you will be able to see, and some you can't. And right now, none of them you can't. Hey, it's another cat. So,
yes.
Oh, where was I? Oh yeah, the look of Fjords. Fjords intentionally looks that way because I wanted it to look that way. I just think that it looks good, but also because Fjords references a lot of games that are personally like really resonant with me, like Jumpman for the Commodore 64, and a little bit Solomon's Key, which it doesn't look like at all, but that actually I was thinking about because Maricopas was, and oh no, the accent. Anyway, is currently making and might release and might not release, and I hope she does release, a Solomon's Key kind of game, and I love Solomon's Key just in terms of if you've not played it, then you should try and look it up, like use an emulator or whatever you have to do. It's a Nintendo game where you have the ability to create blocks like that can help you to navigate the level, to find that key that Solomon has hidden somewhere inside of your Nintendo, and then you can use that key to open a box and get treasure because so, and also that Solomon's Key has like a bunch of different endings to it, and that it's really difficult to get the really, really good ending, and like a lot of Nintendo games of the era, you have to do completely illogical things that might exist in the nebulous realm outside of things that are like revealed to you within the game. Like jump on the third enemy to the right and don't go through the door that's presented to you, but wait around and press down on the white block until you fall behind the level, and then do the screw attack so that you win.
I remember it was. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Mm,
Oh, I was gonna give you time to devise your next move while I say Solomon's Key and Mighty Bomb Jack were the two games that made me feel like. You made this for me to play? You expected me to somehow do this?
Exactly.
When I was like 7 or 8 or whatever. And it's funny, and Anthropy and Merit, who know each other, have both taken from those two games in a way. That's fun. I wonder if there's
Mighty
behind
Jollof, which is another thing that there's so many good games. So stop playing my games and play all the good games, and then come back to play my game. And then you can be done with games. So that's some more advice for people that are watching. So it's basically, it looks the way that it looks because I wanted to make it look like Jumpman. It also looks the way that it looks because all Sharecart 1000 games share a palette as well. So I only had a couple of colors to work with, and stabbing out sprites on my phone, which is how I make a lot of the graphics. I use Sprite something on my telephone because I'm often away from home, and being often away from computers means that a lot of game dev has to happen while I'm on buses and ferries and not at home where things can actually be made. So just making things that were recognizable, like how can I make a block with this ugly, disgusting green? Well, I can do it like this, and it looks like a blob. So yeah, Fjords just looks the way that it does because I really like how it looks. That's a tautology of creating, is that sometimes I make things that I really enjoy, and sometimes people enjoy them also, and sometimes I make things that I really enjoy and people are like, I see what you did there. There's some Street Fighter here mixed in with your bullet hell, and okay, man, this is for babies.
That Cat Girl Without Salad's going to have a similar gameplay mechanic. I wonder if they stole it from you. If it
I
exists.
hope that they did. I want everybody to steal as much as they possibly can from me because, again, this is how my consciousness will replicate itself, and, again, looking to not die. So that's just, just as many different ways as I can not die. It's important for me to not do that.
Yeah, I Love Lucy.
Not. Exactly.
She's not dead at all, which is weird. Mm-hmm. There was two things I wanted to talk about way back when. I actually remembered them, so time worked for me, kind of. One was whether reading the guide and playing the game together, whether there is kind of a space, your mind goes into a place in between the game and the guide, looking between the two, Whether that is an experience unto itself, I know for me, playing a lot of Commodore 64 games, like Zach McCracken, for instance, reading the guide while playing it was infinitely better. Or reading the guide without playing the game, like playing the game in my mind. Before there were Let's Plays, there used to just be pieces of paper with things written on them that we read and then thought about a game that we weren't playing in our own heads. And then when we would go to play it, the amount of anticipation you might have worked up after just reading about it was intense. And where the mind goes in the space between the game, the thing you read about the game, and your own mind's concoctions, I think wonderful. Was that part of your intent with the guide?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of video games that I played, the best version of that video game. I was talking to David Gallant about this last night a little bit. Was that I played it in my head while I was reading the guide on the way home from the mall or wherever I bought the game. The best example that I can think of is Aces Over the Pacific, like this old Dynamix. Like flight sim where you fly World War II planes, and it came with this book that's like, I remember it being like this thick, but it's like this thick, and half the book is just kind of a description of the technological developments of air-to-air combat in the Pacific theater of World War II, and a lot of just is this fascinating thing for me to read and find out about, like getting ready to go play this flight simulator, which was a lot of like sitting in a virtual cockpit and looking around at these flat shaded like islands and thinking like, yeah, this is nice. I'm like really enjoying my really long journey on this combat air patrol, like where I'm not doing anything, just checking my gauges over and over again, kind of like your Euro Truck simulators of 1995 or 93 or whenever it came out as an odd number. I remember that date. Apparently, that I have like a really strong emotional core in the F4U Corsair or something. So yes, like absolutely, I wanted to create a guide that did two things. One, would not give you any practical information about how to play the game. Two, like that really allowed you to inhabit like the world that this hapless pizza delivery person inhabits. That it's a world that can't sustain itself. It's a world that like you can't live in. And it's a place that is constantly pulling itself apart. And I wanted you to think about this impossible thing being in a universe that can't sustain you, that can't allow you to be there. So really influential games for me in that regard of like producing these impossible places have been Crypt Worlds and Goblet Grottos and Goblet Grotto, like games that provide you with this absurd experience in this really hostile, terrible universe that you can inhabit and like drink out of some cool mugs. That's like what I really enjoy about games.
That makes a lot of sense. Commodore 64, I think, was a very special era, at least for me. Mm-hmm. You're right, it's not an era, though. It was a place that I went to.
Yeah.
And for me, it was an era. And there were so many games that were just made by people who handed discs around, and I had no idea where they came from. And the rules weren't consistent in those games because they were made by hobbyists. And I would just be in a tree all of a sudden. I'm like, what am I supposed to do now? And it was because the game broke. Or I would suddenly be I somehow found a way to fly, and I'd go past where the sky limit was supposed to be, and I'd come up through the ground of somewhere else, and I had no idea if that was intended or not. Like there was
swarms the cockles in my heart, that kind of, like, that confusion. Like, that is... so empowering to, like, completely have no idea what has happened and how you caused it to be, so...
Yeah, exactly right.
It really is. Just like, wow, I'm living in this nonsense realm of unpredictability and like noise and terror. It's wonderful. So
yeah,
I really want every child to have that experience of like really wondering, what is reality? Am I?
Perfect.
and there you go. Yeah, no, I think that like when I think about like some of the most exciting games of that place that I've gone to in my speech and in my speeches, like Jeff Minter's games, like particularly like stand out for me as just some of the really exciting, like Commodore 64 and very singular and aggressively not weird, but the way that he wants them to be experiences, like. And I also just some things that I like about those are just the house style that develops of producing things that you particularly want to produce. And I want games to be more about like experiencing like things that people just wanted to make, and so they made them, and now they're there for you to experience.
Yeah, and having those be the games
some vague words.
People. No, but true words, and that.
Yeah.
I was excited that Fjords was so expensive when I first saw that it was $7, which is not expensive for how much you get for it, but compared to, there's this idea in the market these days that if somebody made something because they wanted to and not because they were trying to appease a huge consumer base,
exactly,
they better give it away or they better sell it for 50 cents. But you were like, no, actually, Fjords is worth $7 or $9 or $1.31 right now.
Right now, yes. Right now it is $1.31. That's because I want as many people to play it as they possibly can, and I recognize that at this time of year, particularly, a lot of people have expenses that are unexpected, and they're trying to like do all the things that we're expected to do at this time of year. They're trying to make sure that people get presents, and I just want, if price has been a barrier to you, then you should be able to buy it at certain points. I also want to get paid for it, and I want to become rich and unimaginably powerful. So that's why I put it at $7. I thought I could get away with that. I think my next game I'm going to try and get away with more. But like I really I want people to play it. I also want to become insanely wealthy and to just completely upend the world economy and become an entity unto myself. So these are conflicting desires that I have. If you, the viewer, if you would like to purchase Fjords, but you cannot, but you would like to play it, then please contact me. There's an email address on fjords.com, and you can send me a lot. Like, really, I want you to play it. I think that's probably the first most prime thing that I want, but then for everybody else, I want your money.
And I said that you put a value on a thing that I hope can gain value in the minds of consumers eventually. I would love it if people thought, oh, this game that's going to sell 5 million copies, then they're already going to make so much money, I'm only willing to pay $5 for that. Whereas they see something that's like, oh, this is an uncommon thing, maybe not made to sell potentially to that many people, that's probably should be worth more because they probably need more money back because you're not gonna sell 17 million units of Fjords by the end of the year. I'm
probably not. Maybe by the end of next year, like I'll hit that benchmark for myself. But yeah, no, the things that I really enjoy and the things that I love to play, like I wish every single one of Michael Brogg's games was $50. Like that it had to be $50. I would pay that for them. Like just because those to me are the most vital creations that I want to exist, and so I want him also to be like his own constellation of like money and power and like smiting down the wicked with all of his 8 mighty arms. Like that's what I want for him. Like I want Merritt's game to like make $1 million. Like she released something called Consensual Torture Simulator that I wanted to be like, I don't know, on the New York Times bestsellers list, because games need to be on lists where there are no games. So, like, I want a game to win the Oscars. I also want a game to become president. I want games to do things that people said games can't do that. So, like, It's
a weird coincidence. We're doing an award show. I do this show on Destructoid called The Huge News of the Week, and one of the categories is just the Oscar.
Good.
It went to Animal Crossing.
I agree with that. Like Animal Crossing devoured my life this year, which is the singular measure of success for a game. So that's the thing that matters the most. Did you make bad decisions because of this game? If the answer is yes, success. Like that's, I mean, as far as the game goes, it's doing a fist pump and it's high-fiving its game friends because all games have friends now. It's social networking. It's true.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
Sharecart 1000 has tons of friends. We have
Sharecart 1000 has lovers, not friends.
Oh, my bad. Sorry.
No, they're very hostile to one another, but they commingle in really unexpected, perverse ways.
We have 2 questions in, but I have so many more questions. I'm going to selfishly ask mine first.
Of course.
Do you think that it's a different kind of mind that can take, let's say, the book for Aces Over the Pacific, or graphics that are non-literal, like in Fjords, or in other things that have suddenly become popular, defying expectations, like Minecraft and what have you. These are non-literal graphics that the player has to do some of the work. In Fjords, it connects to Fjords in that the player has to do some of the work in actually coding the world. Asking players to do work in terms of filling in what the representative visuals are supposed to literally mean, and also asking them to do some of the work in the coding. Asking work of the players, is that a different side of the mind, or a different side of who plays video games than those who kind of want to be planted in a extremely realistic world where everything comes naturally and they're just blowing up the stuff or whatever right away?
Yeah, I think it's about broadening the audience for video games, and like getting back to what video games are, at least what they are for me. Like, video games are, I think, first and foremost, a conversation with the player about agency. What can the player do? What can the player not do? So, like, all games are like that. If I drop into Saints Row, and it's about what can I do, what can I not do. And a lot of times, like, these bigger, like, more lavish productions, which, again, I play Dark Souls, so I play these games also. The designer sometimes has, I think the word some of these games, they fall down in certain ways, is that the designer has not asked themselves really what are the consequences of the player being able to do this, or what else can we allow to happen because the player has chosen to do this. Like, this is the fundamental choice, I think, of a game. What can I do? And so games like Fjords, like, I am asking you to do work with a console, and I'm asking you to do work like moving to different locations, and I'm asking you to do work thinking about where it is that you'd like to go. But you're also being asked those questions by, I guess, a AAA developer team conglomerate, Akira Baby. I don't really know how those games are made, like, but like, they're asking you to do that also. They're asking you to decide what it is that you're going to do and to go do it. It's just the feedback that you get that encourages you to try other things. Like in a game like 868 Hack, again, Michael Brogg, it's immediate and it's focused and really, really narrow, whereas it might be a little bit more diffuse in a game like Grand Theft Auto 5. Because there are just so many different things that you can do. Sometimes the consequences don't extend beyond like one or two shallow interactions that are there for you. And sometimes, like, sometimes things are unexpectedly deep. That like the designer has really thought, I really just want to push this particular like verb that this player can do. I want to really make riding this horse like really super great and like unexpectedly something, adjective, noun, etc.
Absolutely. One of the other questions I wanted to ask was about Realm of Impossibility. I don't know if you've heard of that.
I haven't. I have not heard of that, actually. But maybe I have heard of it, and you can think about... Hold on. My light has been pulled off in some...
Oh, that's okay.
I want to make it really noirish there.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. Better? Okay.
Oh, sure. Quite moody with the green neon headphones adding to the mood. Realm of Impossibility, I probably talked about on the show before. I apologize if it's old news to frequent Sup Holmes listeners or watchers. It is
Sorry, Sup Homies.
They don't have a name. Maybe they do now. It is a Commodore 64 game from Electronic Arts. I like that too. Electronic Arts, they used to sell their Commodore 64 games in things that looked like vinyl record boxes. And it had this lavish art of like a Indiana Jones type person with a cross, though. So he's religious, I suppose. And zombies chasing after him. And when you actually play the game, it's a Fjords-like stick character with a little hat. And he's running around in MC Escher-style landscapes where what is real and what is not, they mess with that a lot. Like you're walking on the...
Sounds amazing.
Yeah. And zombies are after him all the time.
Yeah.
And you can't fight the zombies. You can only drop crosses behind you. And the zombies have to slowly eat through the crosses in order to get to you. So you're constantly running away from the zombies, trying to get through MC Escher's mind, and get to, I think, the end Or is it the treasure?
Homework to complete, obviously. This is exciting.
And this was Electronic Arts. They used to think, we're not going to give you a literal representation of this world. We're going to give you MC Escher to have to project your own sense of reality onto this and cope with the fact that we're going to change the rules of reality on you as part of the selling points of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. I hope they do that again. I hope they make a sequel to that someday.
Well, see, I think that it's becoming more acceptable for people to make interlocking systems of rules that are a little bit more opaque. That I think, again, I talked about this a little tiny bit. 868 Hack is a great example of having a world that is hostile and impenetrable at first, and that is composed on a series of not necessarily transparent interactions that later reveals itself to you. It has its own really tightly constructed logic that is figure-outable, and that it's increasingly okay to do this because players are smart, and we just have to have a little faith that eventually players will want to play these things, will also want to experience, I don't know, things that are less literal, because it's boring having the same kind of moveset and the same kind of agency all the time.
Yeah, I think there's often kind of a backwardsness to what games people think are for kids or which ones are for adults.
Yes.
It's often the games that are the hardest and the least literal that kids love, and it's games that, I don't know, but then adults, if they're lucky, loop back to being like kids again and let that kind of over. If they're lucky.
I firmly believe that there's not any really inherent difference between how children learn things and how adults learn things. That we all learn things in similar ways, and that what I want for myself when I'm learning something new is I want a possibility space to learn it in. I want an environment where the results of my actions, I can see them and I can learn from them, so that I can explore cause and effect and have a reasonable amount of certainty in the feedback that I'm getting. And I think that children want this too. They crave specific feedback. They want to know how to get better. And that feedback just can be a lot more subtle than people realize in games. That feedback can be just, wow, I picked up a stick after punching this tree. Or that feedback can be, that's a fun sentence to say out loud, actually. I picked up a stick after punching this tree. This tree, this transmuted itself into a stick, has become what I wanted it to be, a stick. Obviously, this is desirable to me. Anyway, that when we're learning anything, we want the ability to try something and to see what happens as a result of us trying it, and a reasonably safe place to do that, meaning a place where we get understandable, decodable feedback for what we do.
Yeah, those are the games that, surprising to the companies often run by people who aren't huge fans of video games and don't think of video games as much more than interactive fiction, interactive fantasy, interactive escapism.
Right.
They don't think about the idea that we want a place to run around and learn how to do things and then master it. Mastering Fjords. Oh, that would be such a dream come true if I could say I was the master of Fjords.
It is mostly possible.
Oh, that's encouraging.
I have to make things that I still want to play when I'm done with them, and so it's hard for me to make something that has a closed expression, where when you finish it, it's finished. I actually OW is that game. If you want a game that will button itself up for you after you're done, OW is my linear quick time event game. Yeah. Obviously, look at it. You've got a miniature Incredible Mr. Hulk running around inside Terry Kavanagh's mouth, entering into all sorts of dark pacts with various biological organisms within. It's obviously the Indiana Jones game that I can't remember the name of. What's that one game? Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Questions came in. I should not ignore them because we only have 6 minutes left.
Okay.
Our Xanadu, who is here just about every single week,
Mm-hmm.
and it's Xanadu with an X. I don't know if you've seen that movie.
Mm-hmm.
It is kind of like Fjords in that
I love that
the
movie.
viewer
It's
has to
fantastic.
do. You like Xanadu
Mhm,
as well.
of
Not
course.
everyone does.
Yeah.
I sure do too. I'll talk about why it's like Fjords later.
Sure.
Do you think kids messing around with Minecraft or those small few making mods for games are not the same as tinkering with your computers? Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, Xanadu. When you're given a Minecraft with no instruction and given an N64 with just like a loose pencil written, oh, I think you type (8, 1) at the end in order to make it work. Do you think those are similar experiences that are being offered to children? And do you think
of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a flat yes. Like children that are making things in Minecraft, even like just vanilla Minecraft, are experiencing the same kind of exploratory drive that they would be experiencing in, you know, some archaic command line thing. So I absolutely think that that is the case. I think that what I was referring to earlier when I'm talking about like learning that you can use computers to make things is that there's not a wide diversity of ways for like kids that don't have access to computers very often to start seeing them as anything more than a consumptive device. So kids that don't have computers at home, where like their experience of computing is using a computer at school every once in a while, I want them to think they're just as capable of coding and making things as the kid who has a computer at home or has a lot of time to play Minecraft and to mod Minecraft. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Like for me, it's an equity issue. Like I want to teach computer science in schools because I want those kids that come to a public school and they don't have access to computers any other time to still grow up thinking that they, you know, can pursue this. Like that I want them to have access and time to it. I want them to have support at school doing it.
Absolutely. Yeah, because for a lot of them, the new era of computers, they're everywhere, which is great. But back when I was young, if you had a computer, there was an inherent idea that you were going to have to work in order to get anything from it, but that there was endless potential with what you could do with that work.
Well, also, if you had a computer back when there were first computers, like it meant that you like frequently are in the kind of family where you have time and space and money to explore using that computer too. Whereas now, like a lot of kids have access to computers intermittently or sometimes, and they might not necessarily like have at home an environment that's conducive to learning more about computing. Like they just might not have access, they might not have money, they might not have a lot of these different things. So, like leveling somebody, yeah, totally.
Absolutely. I was relatively poor growing up, but I spent a year collecting babysitting money to buy a Commodore 64, and that's all I spent that money on. And then the next year I got to buy a disk drive, so it was a 2-year purchase.
That is dedication right there. Yes.
Yeah. Then I just played Tapper on it.
Hey.
Pretty much all I did.
But when you made that choice for yourself, you could do that. You said, I want this experience. I want to play Tapper. And you did.
Yeah, I love
celebrate
Tapper.
that. It's wonderful. Yeah. Yes.
Root beer Tapper. No alcohol for me as a kid.
Of course
Forward
not.
Resent asks, when you went about designing Fjords, did the mechanics come first or the world? And what's Fjords Forever? If that's what is it, how is it different?
The mechanics absolutely came first. Because I started from a list of variables and I wanted to populate those variables, I just threw a lot of you can do this into one screen, and then I gradually built a series of screens that you could traverse. Actually, before I mentioned Ian Snyder, like earlier, like he's been, I think, the person that has seen the most of Fjords that hasn't been looking at its code. He has been immeasurably helpful to me, like testing it and like also pushing back on it and making it better. Like before, there was a version of Fjords that really had like these hard-coded exits where you could only go one path, like through the world. It just did not work to go back. You would actually just die, and it was a really irrational, illogical place. And Ian was like, hey, what if you made it so that you could go to any screen like from any other screen if you could just kind of walk through the world. And I was like, oh, this seems like a really obvious thing now, but the idea that I would make a coherent world that you could just kind of go to in any order, like, did not occur to me as I was designing it. So very much Science Mountain was a place of chaos and fear before Ian.
And it still is, but of accessible, optimistic fear.
It's a world of chaos and fear, but the edge of the screen no longer arbitrarily kills you sometimes.
Fjords Forever. How many different kinds of fjords are you going to make from here?
I originally intended to do 3 Fjords games because I like, when I'm working on any kind of a game jam, I like to do things in little trilogies, which is why, like, when the Pirate Cart or GDC happened last year, year before, not sure how long ago it was now, that I did 3 Punch games. I did Super Punch Everything, that was first, and then I did Punch Forever, and then I did Punch the Butts 3D, which is also a tie-in with Shoot the Butts, one of my other games that I really hope my students have stopped watching at this point, because I don't want them to know that I've made that game, but I also do want them to know that I made that game, but I want them to be okay with it, and also their parents. Anyway, butts. Anyway.
They're very safe butts. Those are the safest.
They're pretty safe. They're pretty safe. Mm. I mean, they're as safe as any butt can be. I would say that Fjords Forever is something I'm working on currently. It's what if the world of Fjords, if you didn't have all the time that you wanted to explore it, what if it was inherently unstable and chaotic, and also this was an arcade game. So I'm turning Fjords into a one-screen arcade game that is procedurally generated, because we all know that that's better, and so that Fjords Forever will actually not continue forever, but through 3 iterations of 10-level worlds. So.
Huh. So those are procedurally generated worlds, so it's different every time you play it. So it's forever in a way. Yeah,
it's actually the world is generated around you, around the micro pizzas that populate the screens of Fjords. So it takes one aspect of Fjords that not too many people have spent a lot of time exploring, and that's the existence of a parallel pizza dimension that exists in Fjords, and it looks at it through the lens of a different character that's trying to prevent one of the more obscure endings of Fjords from taking place.
Whoa. That sounds fantastic. And that's the second Fjords game?
That's the second Fjords game. Yeah, so that's you talked about, like, the world between, like, the manual and the game. Fjords Forever is one of these worlds. There will be another one.
Whoa, awesome. We're overtime. Oops, I failed.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, Sinistar.
I apologize, everyone.
Oh, that's okay. I'm excited that you did that, but I did not do what I was supposed to do. Thank you for you.
Yes, of course.
You are... They can look at your games on Lasercats with a Z and then another Z.com, right?
Yeah, lasercats.com. I'm also on Twitter, Moon Magic with 3 O's and Moon, and I sometimes tweet about games on there, but mostly I'm tweeting about food, and and then also Fjords has its own website. It's fjords.com. That's 3 S's at the end of Fjords. And that there are 6 different versions of that website that you can find by clicking the Mystic Triangle at the top of the page. I highly encourage you to do this. So I work really hard on those triangles.
I had no idea. I will do that right after the show.
I really encourage you to.
Thank you for the encouragement. I am Tron Knotts on Twitter, and you can watch the show later or send the link to your friends from YouTube. It will be uploaded there. A lot of people have been doing the Twitch rerun recently, which is fine, but the YouTube one tends to play a little cleaner, so you may want to wait for that on Detoid on YouTube, the Detoid's YouTube channel. It is up there, and also on Libsyn and on iTunes. You can just listen to it later. Sup Holmes. Just Google Sup Holmes in iTunes. It's easy. It's easier than loading up a Commodore 64 game. I can't even remember.
It's easier than Fjords. Yeah.
It's way easier than Fjords. Kyle, thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, of course. Thanks for having me. Yeah. I would love to do both of those things.
Very good.
And also in touch.
And then
thanks everyone for watching me talk about myself. I'll do it forever.